Hey guys, just before we start the podcast, I just wanted to mention a small thing that before I did this podcast with Arthur, I didn't know how good he was. And I was blown away when I actually saw his portfolio. Usually, I do my research on my guests and I know what to expect. But in Arthur's case, we kind of did it in a rush that same day, although we had been in contact for a while. But I just wanted to tell you that he's so humble. He didn't let on how good he is. And when you see his work, it is absolutely mind blowing. His nature photography, wildlife, landscape, everything is so amazing. Definitely a really fun, good conversation I had with him. So I hope you enjoy this podcast.
Okay, first of all, how are you doing, Arthur? How's everything going?
Great. I'm doing really good. Got all
Okay.
these technical issues off here, so we're
Yeah,
off to the
yeah,
races here.
that's true. That's true. Where are you right now, by the way?
I'm in New Jersey. I'm in my home, in
Okay.
southern New Jersey, Cape County. It's a little shore town, on the east coast of the states.
Yeah. Okay, great. And you've been there most of your life?
Most of my life. Started out in North Jersey, which is right outside of New York City.
Yeah,
Worked as a
yeah.
teenager in Manhattan and kind of migrated my way down to the southernmost part of New Jersey. Can't get any more
Okay.
south than Cape May County. So
That's cool. That's cool. So, okay, let's get into the photography part of this
awesome.
podcast. How long have you been doing photography?
I've been doing photography my whole life. I wouldn't call
Oh,
myself a photographer my whole life. Although, the more I get into this, the more I realize everybody's a photographer and everybody has the ability now with a
yeah.
phone in their pocket to be a photographer. But I was always the guy taking the pictures and the family
Yeah.
doing the
Yeah.
videos. I used to love to put videos together and photographs for my kids, um, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, weddings. I was the guy who put it all together. And I always knew that it worked out good because I'd look at my mom or somebody, and if they were crying, you know, worked out pretty good.
Fantastic.
So in my
Fantastic.
mind, I was the photographer for, my entire life. I would say that I really started getting really into this um, sometime around COVID 2021 on a trip to
Mhm.
Africa, where I always had a Nikon camera. I can remember an old Nikon Z, not Z, Nikon F3 I had. I wish I still had
Yeah,
it, that I used to take around everywhere. Um, and but I never really started getting into it. I never really shot manual until about 3 or 4 years ago. It was always kind of auto and just going out and capturing pictures and going from there. Never really used any editing, Photoshop, Lightroom, or anything before that. But a trip to Africa back in 2021 really made the difference. I decided to buy at that time the first mirrorless camera I had was a Z50, and then
nice.
A Z2 at
Yeah,
that time, and it just blossomed from there. I got hooked.
excellent. Excellent. That's fantastic. That African trip must have been pretty cool. I'm sure you got a lot of wildlife photography done
Yeah,
over that time, huh?
it was really enlightening. It was during COVID. It was a huge change in my life to start doing things that I wanted to do my entire life but couldn't do because of my career and because of raising six kids
Yeah.
and all that kind of good stuff.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
and I actually met a guy by the name of Bannister on our trip when we were in Kenya. And I really got into it then because I started learning technique, started learning more about
Mhm.
wildlife and, at that time, and lenses and shutter speed and ISO, and all those things that I never really thought about at that time. And then I just consumed
Yeah.
everything I could consume to learn more and more and more and really get this into from a hobby to really something I really, really wanted to do
Excellent.
professionally. And when I say
Yeah.
professionally, I mean get to the type of pictures and the type of photography and the techniques that I felt were more not on an amateur basis, but something that I could say, hey, I'm pretty good at this, and I'm still
Yeah.
there, getting there every day.
Excellent. Excellent. So do you do this in some way? I was gonna say professionally, but you're talking about the skill level professional.
Well,
Do you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not doing it professionally in that. The only thing I do if I was to make any money at this, and photographers, as you know,
Yeah.
uh, don't make a great living for the most part. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
hard.
It's tough.
It's really hard. Anything I do that I would make money from this would be going directly to charity. Goes to my wife's charity, which is Hope Music Fest, which is a local
Wow.
charity. My wife's an oncologist, I'm an internist, and we use these monies to help patients locally to be able to get rides to, radiation or chemotherapy or need drugs or just need help around the house that normal insurance wouldn't pay for. So that's the reason for that. My real
Excellent.
profession is internal medicine and critical care. So,
Excellent.
it's a whole different world.
That's really cool. That's exciting and really nice to hear about your wife's charity. I think that's a fantastic thing to be doing. So you're basically in the medical profession. You're a doctor, I believe, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Been in medicine for 36, 38 years now.
Wow.
And COVID was a kind of a turning point for me. I did a lot of hospital medicine, critical care medicine, plus I had my own practice. And learned a lot about myself at that time. And
Yeah.
as a lot of physicians during that time had a lot of burnout. And
Yeah.
through photography, through the trip to Africa, through the camera, through the lens, I was able to find a joy that I didn't have before and a different vision of the world. And it really kind of blew my world at that time.
Mm,
And
that's,
it's
yeah.
taken off ever since.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Was there like a certain set of pictures or an image that you took that just kind of did it for you that, oh my God, this is what I'm gonna do, or it just kind of pushed you more towards, let's say, encouragement in doing this as professional as you can, like when you were in Kenya, or what was there a moment? Or was it slow in the process?
I think it was something more slow, and it's more the environment, not the pictures itself. I think it's the feeling you get. I use a lot of this on my YouTube channel and in my descriptions on Instagram when I'm posting a picture now. It's this message, really the feeling of awe you get when you're in these places, and when I want to hit the shutter there's
Yeah,
something that happens in the brain. I've studied this and I've looked at this from a medical standpoint. So I'm always looking at it from the scientific medical standpoint. What's happening in my brain when I do this? And I
yeah,
really think, and also studies really point this out, that when you are in that period, that moment in time that is awe-inspiring to you, there's a surge of things going on in your brain: dopamine, epinephrine, adrenaline, that rush of
yeah,
adrenaline you get, especially in Kenya when you got a leopard, walking across
yeah,
the road in front of you or something like that. And all those things are really helpful in that moment for excitement, but they also imprint that moment in your memory banks.
yeah,
And by taking the picture, it brings back that moment as well. So
yeah, yeah,
I think there's an enjoyment myself for being able to take the picture and later going back to it and re-experiencing that moment. But then also, I find that, and I use this a lot with my patients in the office, that I'll show them a picture of where I was or where I've been and something amazing, a polar bear from Svalbard
yeah,
or a beautiful
yeah,
scene from, Banff or something like that. And they find joy out of it too.
yeah,
And so I
yeah,
think that moment that we capture, that we imprint in our minds, if we can also portray that moment as best we can, that feeling we had at the moment,
mm,
I think that's
mm,
helpful to other people. And I think that brings joy to other people. And I mean, that's why photography is so prevalent on social media. I mean,
Absolutely.
everybody's looking for pictures and looking for views and gorgeous views and things like that. But I also think you don't have to go to Antarctica to catch that
Yeah.
awe, although it's awesome.
Yeah.
But you know, just kind of walking your dog and looking up at the sky and seeing like this amazing, magenta sun set,
Yeah.
or holding a newborn baby or something like that. I mean, these are all
Yeah.
moments of awe, moments we capture during our lifetime, and I have been trying to investigate that part of it. And that's been my
Mhm.
journey over the last 3 or 4 years, is how do I bring that all, not just to me in my recovery from stresses and depression and things like that, but also
Mhm.
how can I bring that to my patients and maybe even to a larger audience? And
That's
that's the whole point of
yeah.
my YouTube channel and why I do what
Yeah.
I do.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. So actually coming to YouTube, since that is something you're doing, can you tell us a little about that? The how that came about, why you made that channel, how much does that have to do with your your patients and your medical side? How much is it photography? And like you're just mentioning that you're bringing photography to help you in this. But tell us a little about the YouTube
Yeah.
part of your life.
Yeah, YouTube's tough. I didn't
Yeah.
realize how tough it could be. It's tough, and the reason it's tough is I, I've been lecturing to medical students and I'm a professor at Rowan Medical College. I've been lecturing to major audiences for my entire lifetime. And you're always in a theater or in a hall or in a classroom and you have eye contact. Like I have eye contact with you now. And I can have
Mhm.
that conversation. That's easy. But when you're doing it in YouTube, you don't know who's looking, what their expressions are, how,
Yeah.
unless they comment,
True. Yeah.
you can have 2,000 subscribers, but if nobody's commenting, it's just what's out there. But the
Yeah.
reason I started it was, well, part of my photography exploration and this discovery was kind of like I felt when I was a physician in training. I wanted to do rotations with the best that were there. And so I've done many workshops over the past 3 or 4 years looking for those professionals that I think are the best. And when I say the
Yeah.
best, I mean people who have the same kind of philosophy as I might have about photography or about experiencing awe or about nature or about climate change and things like that. So I've gotten to meet some really incredible people, some of which, have, like
Yeah.
you've interviewed Rick Babington, we
Yeah.
met and people like Nigel Danson and Rachel Jones Ross
Yeah.
and people like that. These are people who I have admired on YouTube and I've seen their
Yeah.
channel and I've found that I've experienced awe through them. And that was my kind of take to say, let's take this a step further. And part of it also was when I go out on these shoots or go on these amazing trips, I shoot video. And now with shooting
Yeah.
drone, I have shoot drone footage. And so it's
That's
just
fantastic.
sitting on my hard drive doing nothing. So I said, well, let's do something with this. And
Might as well. Yeah.
I figured the way I could do it is try to get all this footage together and try to make up some stories and things that are helpful maybe to people or maybe enjoyable. And worst case scenario, I'm leaving a legacy for my kids who can actually go back and say, what did dad do, in his
Yeah.
retirement or retirement, years, and
Yeah.
what
All
was
these
he
videos.
thinking? What was his
Hmm.
brain thoughts? I don't have that about my dad or my mom. I mean, I have
Yeah.
memories,
Yeah.
but I
True.
have nothing that I can tangibly look at, other than, uh, I did get recently a pile of papers which were love letters that my dad had sent my mom that I didn't know was existed
How
to be
nice.
found. And all of a
Wow.
sudden you get an insight into what he was like. And I'm, kids
Yeah.
now. they're not interested in any of the what dad's doing. Like my
Yeah.
grandson is my 5-year-old grandson. He subscribes to my YouTube channel. He loves it. But my kids, they, they don't care.
Awesome.
But someday they will, and that's one of the reasons as well.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. That's really interesting. So you're doing video as well. How do you enjoy
Yeah.
video compared to photography? Because I also do video and I enjoy that. But you're telling me you have a drone. Tell me what drone you have, and tell me how much you enjoy doing the video part of it, editing it, and how you make a frame in your mind. Tell me a bit about video.
Yeah. So I learned a lot when I went to the Highlands of Iceland last year. And I was with Mass Peter Iverson and Jeroen van Nieuwenhof, and I was able to like really free myself up with the drone. I had a drone before, I kind of played with it, but I
Yeah.
knew nothing what I was doing. But I got lucky and was there at the Little Ruta eruption last
Oh
year.
wow. Okay.
And I actually took my son with me on this trip, and my son and I took that 22-kilometer round trip hike to Little Luther, and I flew my drone up, and I basically said, if it melts and burns up, it is what it is. But this is a volcano; it's a once in a
Yeah.
lifetime, and it
Yeah.
really freed me up to really start maneuvering and feel comfortable with it. And as I learned through the workshop that was later in the week up in the Highlands, I got better and better at it.
Yeah.
And recently in West Greenland, we also were able to fly drones, and we were on a boat. And that was another like obstacle. How do I do this? And just having people by your side who are really good
Yeah.
at this is another added confidence level. And once you get the confidence level down, then you could start being creative. And
Yeah.
that's when the
Yeah.
creativity comes in. Uh, and then you have to get lucky. So there's a
Yeah.
shot I have on my most recent Greenland YouTube video. I had the drone out at Eki Glacier, which is one of the biggest glaciers in the world. And I was just panning down slowly, cinematically across the edge, the face of the glacier. And
Yeah.
just as it was coming across, the
Yeah.
thing just caved. And
Wow.
you have to realize instead of saying wow and start clicking, you got to
Yeah.
stay with it, stay with it. I
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
the shot. And that feeling of I want to get this shot and sticking with it and just keep it going, don't stop to look, just
Yeah.
keep going, really got one of the greatest shots I've ever had on a drone because I got lucky, but I also started to learn the technique of what is
Yeah.
this going to mean. And I don't need 30 minutes of video, I just need 10 seconds. So
True.
keep it still for 10 seconds and see, if you get
Hmm.
something out
Hmm.
of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about it, and I've also learned a lot about photography with drones because it gives
Yeah.
you a lot more leeway to be able to use the drone in a manner to get a composition and
Hmm.
compositionally to think of a huger space than you would, having a camera sitting on a stream or trying to find a foreground in a wide angle. You can simulate that wide angle on a drone by doing a panel, a vertical panel or
Yeah.
a horizontal panel. But you have to keep in your mind how that perspective is going to be. What are my leading
Hmm.
lines? The same thing you would do in a normal camera shot works on a drone just at a bigger level.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
If I can pull my drone up, I'm a happy
Yeah.
man because I
That's
have more things to work on and it's easier. When you're on land and you got a tripod, and I want to get that shot, it may take me 2 hours to get to that point. I want to get to the shot, but if I got a drone, I'm there in 2 seconds.
yeah.
So it,
Drones are
it, it,
awesome.
it does give you a little bit more options there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell me what gear do you have? What do you keep in your bag? What do you
So
travel with?
I shoot mostly my photography is all Nikon.
Yeah.
I got the Nikon Z9, Z9. I
Hmm.
have the also Z2, and that basically actually my wife uses now, and I have a ZF, which I really love that camera. Just
Oh, really?
toying around and going around the
Yeah.
city in New York or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just a great camera. I also Astro modified that for night shooting for
Oh,
if
nice,
I were to use
nice.
it. So I do have to make some changes in white balance when I'm shooting regularly, but it's not a
Yeah.
big deal. Um, I'll use an Osmo Pocket 3 when I'm on out on a big trip, like we're on a Zodiac or something like that. It's really helpful.
Yeah.
I use the Mavic. I now have a DJI Mavic Pro 3 cine camera
Hmm.
drone that I use, and I love that because it's got the 7x tele zoom, which is
Yeah.
really helpful for those compression views you
Yeah.
want to get from a video perspective. Um, and I mean, that's basically my equipment. I have a Insta 360, which is really a lot of
Hmm.
fun to
Yeah.
use, especially on trips like to Antarctica or Svalbard. You don't have a drone, but you can get some drone shots with it, actually.
Yeah.
And it's
Hmm.
really nice when if I'm, and I'm using it more on the basis of knowing I'm going to be doing a YouTube video or something. I can hold it in my hand. I could be hiking with it. I can
Hmm.
click it right back to my cotton carrier, which I use basically for
Yeah.
everything when I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I can get shots of myself, shots of other people, and I could in post, pan and zoom, and it's a lot
Hmm.
easier to use. So
Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
main things I carry with me. The
Yeah.
people who go on trips with me will normally kid me because I'm usually the guy with everything on me. Uh, I have
Yeah.
a cotton carrier, which I think is the best thing for me from the
Yeah.
standpoint of gives me the ability to have pockets, throw lenses in, do whatever I have to do. I could carry two
Hmm.
camera bodies with me at one time, and it's not a big, hassle on
Yeah.
my back. And that's my basic,
What about lenses?
so normally when I'm going, I have a 14-24 millimeter that I use mostly
Yeah.
for wide. I have a 100-400 zoom, which is my baby as far as travel zooms go. But if I'm in Antarctica or when we were in Svalbard, I have a 180-600 that is just fabulous for wildlife. I
Wow.
mean, if you really want to get up close,
That's a big lens, isn't it?
that's it's actually
It's,
not that huge. I mean,
oh, really? Okay.
it's
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
I mean, I
Okay.
mean, this is it right here.
Well,
It's
it's
not
still
heavy,
pretty
right?
big, but not as
It's
big
not,
as some other ones.
no, no.
Yeah, yeah,
I
it's
mean, this is
manageable.
600. It's got great quality. I really love it. It worked great in Antarctica and Svalbard,
Yeah,
because I was
yeah,
able to carry it right on my carrier and just take it out.
yeah.
I was able to try a 600 prime, which was really kind of cool, but that was heavy.
Wow, must have
And
been.
I found that, and it's a $14,000 lens, and
Yeah,
I actually enjoyed my using mine better than that.
yeah.
I was actually next to Rachel Bigsby, who's a
Hmm.
Nikon ambassador and amazing
Yeah,
wildlife bird photographer. You might have
yeah. I've
heard of
heard of
her.
her, I think.
And she
Uh,
had a 400. She had the 600 prime, and
yeah.
uh, she was she didn't bring a wide lens with her, and we were out at a penguin colony, and
Yeah,
she's freaking out because, oh, man, I want to get like the scene in
yeah,
with the penguin, and all you can
yeah.
see is the penguin. And we just swapped lenses, and I got a chance to,
Nice,
to use this
nice.
fourteen
I
thousand
worked
dollar
out for
lens,
you.
and it was fun. And I got some great shots, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I found that the zoom is a little bit easier, and you get just as,
Hmm.
I think from
A little
my
more
perspective,
flexible.
I'm doing, it was perfect.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I'm not a Nikon guy. So I don't know these lenses you have like this one, the 180 to 600. I'm sorry, is that what you said? Is that a Nikon itself?
Yeah, yeah, it's a Z
It's
lens.
not a
Yeah.
third party or anything.
No,
Yeah,
no, no.
okay.
I do have some third-party lenses. I use I haven't really used it much. I'm looking forward to doing it on my next trip. I
Mm.
bought this. It's called the Laowa. I don't know if you've heard of them,
Yeah, yeah,
Laowa.
yeah, yeah. I
And
know that.
it's a 10 millimeter 2.8, and
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to playing with that. With
Okay. Yeah.
landscapes, you can get real close with that. I found
Yeah.
when I was in Iceland on Diamond Beach, getting really up
Hmm.
close to the ice was really kind of cool because you get some
Yeah.
really nice perspective shots, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really mess up it doesn't distort this lens like some of the other
Yeah.
ones do. So
Yeah,
that's the
that's
only
really
third party
cool.
I have. Yeah.
So you were just in Iceland right now as well, weren't you?
Yeah.
A few
Yeah.
weeks ago.
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, I was in Iceland. We went on a workshop to the East Coast. My goal was to see Vesterhorn. I had always wanted to
Okay.
get there, and I got to go there, and it was fabulous. We got there with an amazing
Yeah.
sunrise, and a lot of fun. A lot of
Fantastic.
fun.
It's
Yeah, I
amazing.
mean the weather
I
was
see.
crazy, icy,
Yeah.
snowy, blowing 40-mile-an-hour winds, but
Yeah.
yeah,
So you're used to going to cold places, I think, because you're mentioning Antarctica, Svalbard, you mentioning
yeah,
Iceland. Tell me, and even
yeah.
Kenya, which is a warm place, but most of the majority
Yeah,
seems to be really cold.
well, this was an interesting year. I had determined to really go crazy this year. I wanted to do a polar exploration. I wanted to go from pole to
Wow.
pole. So I
Yeah.
planned actual trips to go from Antarctica, the southern poles,
Yeah.
to the northern pole, in Svalbard. And in between, I had trips to Prince Edward Island to do the total eclipse this
Nice.
year, which
Yeah.
was incredible. Iceland and West Greenland. So yeah, this is a cold year. I
Yeah.
promised my wife to do some warm stuff coming up. Although
Yeah.
she's really gotten into it. I've given her my she's really the talent in this creative talent in this. She does watercolors.
Oh, really?
She's an artist. I'm
Wow.
not. She has a great eye. She just works way too hard to be able to really get into the technical aspects of shooting. But she's come with me to Svalbard and Antarctica and West Greenland, and
That's
she's taken
fantastic.
thousands of pictures herself. They're just sitting on her hard drive doing nothing, but she's really
Oh,
good. So
love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm proud of her because she normally wouldn't have been into the cold, but now she realizes how
Yeah.
absolutely magnificent these places are. And sometimes you have
Yeah.
to go to these places that are really, from a weather perspective, hard,
Yeah. Hard to get.
because that's where you get the pristine life. You get that
Hmm.
unbelievably pristine world
Raw
that
nature.
you just don't get anywhere else.
That's fantastic. Sounds like you made your wife into a photographer too, as well.
I think she's got the bug. Yeah, I think she got the bug.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
I got her
imagine.
for the holidays. I bought her a 28 400 lens, which
Yeah.
Nikon just put out. And she was really excited about it. I'm like, she goes, "This is the best present I've ever had." I'm like, "Really?" I've given you some pretty
Wow.
good
So
presents. This is the best present.
fantastic.
So
Yeah.
yeah, she's got the bug, and it's easy to get the bug, as you know. I mean, once you've been out and you've
Yeah.
taken pictures of unbelievable places, and you've learned how
Hmm.
to capture things, and then you've learned,
Mm.
and you have to have an eye for it. And I think she has that
Yeah.
eye. I found, as you asked before, when did you get into photography? I look back at my pictures from 30, 40 years ago, and I always had the compositional skills. I just didn't have the
Yeah.
technical. And now
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
a search to really learn
Yeah.
the technical of it.
I think compositional is more important because you learn the technical whenever you want. Anybody can do that.
Right.
It's
Right.
that creative eye, that kind of inherent ability, which is more important. So that's great that you had that. So I see your overall. If I look back at what you're talking about, there's a lot of landscape and wildlife in there. And that those are the two things I think that you kind of enjoy when it comes to photography and video.
Yeah, I guess so, but it's interesting. I've learned a lot. Um, Again, I've learned a lot from people I've hung around with in the last 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
There's a unbelievable photographer, James Popsis, that you might know of. And
Hmm.
James is from Great Britain. And James is one of those people who you might be on a Zodiac looking at this amazing leopard seal or something, and he's
Yeah.
turned the opposite way, holding a 40 millimeter, lens, taking a picture of a hut that's sitting there, and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
What are you doing? We're in
But he's
Antarctica."
got the eye. Yeah.
But the more
Yeah.
you look at his pictures, the more you hang out with him, the more you find the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been striving to do more and more of that in my photography. Um, and so I'm more eclectic. I don't
Yeah.
call myself a landscape photographer, an astrophotographer, a wildlife photographer. I I'll go, for example, on this trip to West Greenland we just went to. We had to stop in Reykjavik before we got there,
Yeah.
and I didn't have all my gear with me. It was all packed and everything. I just took my 40 millimeter ZF, walked around
Yeah.
town, and
Nice. Some street
took
photography.
shots of dumpsters and
Yeah.
colorful houses or something like that. And I find sometimes those pictures are more magical than the regular
Hmm.
pictures. The trip in Iceland I just had, we were at the Black Sand Beach, that famous beach with the
Yeah.
rain
I heard.
sea stacks, uh, wind blowing, snow everywhere, but amazing surf and pictures of fog and stuff like that. And I thought I had all the pictures I needed in the world for that day. And as we're leaving, there was two gals. They were all bundled up. They were trying to take a picture of themselves, and they couldn't do it, and they were kind of huddled, and the wind was getting at them. And I said, "Wow, that's the shot." And I,
Yeah.
pulled my camera up and just took a shot. And I'm telling you, out of maybe 600 pictures I took that day, that's my favorite shot
That's your
because
best.
it just was the essence of that entire morning was
Yeah.
two people, I had no idea who they are, huddled together, snow blowing, wind blowing, sea stacks in the distance. I'll throw all
Fantastic.
the other pictures away for that shot, you know?
That's really cool. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So another question I have is about your astrophotography. What's the
Yeah.
setup for that? Do you have like I mean, you just use a tripod and your normal lens, right? Do you have a long zoom?
Yeah, I don't,
'Cause
it depends what I'm shooting. I'm not a big, I'm dabbling in, you know, galaxies
yeah,
but mostly Milky Way kind of stuff. I'll use a wide angle for that.
yeah.
Aurora, Milky Way are things that I really like doing. Um, my setup, I do have a Polar Pro, I think it's called a Polar Pro, the a Benro Polar Pro, which is my tracker that I use. If
Okay.
I want to track stars and I want to get a
So it
longer
it
exposure,
moves along.
kind of.
Is that
So
what
it
it does? Yeah,
moves,
yeah.
it moves at the same
Pretty
speed of
slowly.
the Earth.
Deer.
So
Yeah,
normally with your camera, and each camera is different, but you want to have the perfect exposure that doesn't allow for star trails if you're doing, a Milky Way
yeah,
or star astro.
yeah,
And what a tracker allow you to do is it allows you to have a longer exposure. You can have a 100-second exposure because you're tracking what you're looking at the whole time. Um,
yeah.
so it's really nice, but it's a big piece of equipment to carry, and it's got a lot of electronics, and a lot of things can go wrong, and it could be a pain in
I've
the
never used
butt.
that. If you're using a tracker, you don't need to have the ISO shot up because usually people have like their ISO at like
So you could
6400.
no, you can bring your that's the whole point. You could bring your ISO
Yeah,
down at 800, 600 with that. But
that's crazy.
honestly,
Wow.
with the
Okay.
cameras today, though, I mean,
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
could
really
get a
matter. You're right.
3200, 6000 ISO and still have a, tack sharp picture as long as your stars are in focus and sharp and you don't have
Yeah,
star, trails.
yeah,
I've shot at 6200, I've shot at, I've shot at
yeah,
12,000 ISO if
yeah.
need be, the post-processing AI we have now to get rid of noise is just so good that I'd
Absolutely.
rather think more about getting the shot, get the exposure right, rather than worrying about the noise in the ISO. I mean, I
True,
think
true.
that's something everybody
Absolutely.
should be, you know,
I did
you
some
know.
astro photography recently, but I don't have that equipment, and I couldn't do it too long because of the Earth's movement. So that's why I think
Yeah,
it's a great thing if you can just keep that exposure open as long as you want, and really,
yeah, But I mean, I
rather than
find that like my camera, the Z9, I think 6 or 7 seconds is the longest you can expose for. But you can push your ISO and get some really cool deep,
yeah,
sky
yeah,
pictures with that. Milky Way shots for sure. I mean, if you look on my website, my Milky Way shots are all 7, 8 second exposures. They're not these huge,
okay,
tracker exposures. Um,
yeah,
I dabble with the tracker, but I find that I really don't need it to get the shots I want. If I'm going to get, if you want to do, I have a couple of shots of the Horsehead Nebula or something like that, then you need it, you need
yeah,
a tracker. You really
yeah.
need to tweak that out and have some huge long exposures for that.
That's fantastic.
But we were talking about astrophotography, which I really find fascinating, and I think it's really cool that you're kind of into that. Yeah, you were saying you took some pictures of you did the Milky Way, and you've been doing like have you done
Yeah.
any other galaxy?
Just Orion Galaxy. I mean, just
Yeah.
oh, I have some shots of the Andromeda Galaxy within the above the Milky Way, a full arch with the Andromeda Galaxy up top.
Oh,
Um,
really?
the editing part of deep space photography, I've tried, I've dabbled. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time, a lot of effort. I
Oh,
know
really?
I've met a lot of people who are really into it,
Yeah.
telescopes out their back, hooked up to their computer. Um, I, I'd love to do that, but it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of editing, and I just don't have the time to do it now. But someday,
Yeah.
someday I'd like to play around with that a little bit more. I do enjoy going out, especially some of my favorite places to go are up in the Canadian Rockies, and
Yeah.
where you have, these
Yeah.
mortal skies that are just
Yeah. There's no light
billions
pollution.
of stars.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous, and that's where you really get your shots.
That's amazing.
I'm a good friend, Rachel Ross, lives up in the Calgary area, and been up to Banff a couple of times with her, and I'm gonna meet up with her in Lofton actually,
Yeah.
end of end of February. I'm sorry, but you get excitement off of these people who are so good at this and do it so well and are
Yeah.
so excited about it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
get you get an aurora that's just
Yeah.
blows up. And
That's
there's just
fantastic.
nothing like it.
Where can we
Just nothing like
see
it.
where can we see some of your astrophotography work? Have you put it up?
If you go to my website, artiedocphotography.com, there's actually a
Yeah.
gallery section for night. It says night photography. So I have
Okay.
some of my stuff there. Uh,
I'll be showing it right now.
yeah, and
While we're
as I
talking, it'll be showing in my
awesome,
edit.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's some stuff on there that's kind of cool. And then some of my landscapes and most of the astro stuff I've done is up in the Canadian Rockies because that's where the skies have just been so
Yeah.
fantastic. We got a little lucky in West Greenland, got a little aurora one night, but it was,
Yeah.
okay. In Iceland, got a really good aurora, but had a lousy foreground. So I don't have a great picture of it. I have a little bit of
Okay.
a time lapse
Yeah.
going of it,
Yeah.
but got really lucky a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, back in Banff at Vermilion Lakes outside of Banff with one of the most spectacular auroras I've ever seen, and
Really.
had a time lapse going, had everything going. And I was just like
Oh, nice.
loving every minute of it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's talk about awe. That's awe.
Really.
Just amazing. Yeah.
You sound like someone who's traveled quite a bit. So, where's your favorite place that you
Yeah.
photograph from? I'm not talking about the place. It could be astrophotography, could be landscape, anything. What's your favorite
Yeah.
place so far?
I don't know if I have a favorite place.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes my favorite place is just my local beach, depending on the conditions or what happened or what's going on.
Okay.
Um, if I had to pick one place that if someone had the money, had the ability to
Mm.
go to that to really go to, it's got to be Antarctica. It's
Really?
just yeah.
Sounds really uncomfortable,
I mean,
to be
I
honest.
no, actually not. It wasn't bad at all.
Oh, really?
I mean, it's out there. It's far.
Yeah.
They
You gotta go
one
to
of the things
Chile.
I remember one of the docs that I was talking to on the ship we were on with the Aurora Expeditions. He was saying if you need a medevac from where we are right now, it's
Yeah.
easier to get you from the International Space Station than where we are right now.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
from the perspective of what you get to see there's just nothing more vast, more remote, more amazing from a standpoint of wildlife, remoteness,
Yeah.
vistas. You just can't even you just can't even imagine it. But
Yeah.
I love going back to Iceland. Iceland's just,
Yeah.
gives you an opportunity always because of the weather conditions. Are just 5 seasons in a day and just blowing at you, but you get some of the best shots, if you're willing
Amazing.
to bear it out.
What's the best
Ireland,
place in Iceland to go?
I don't know if there's a best place. I think it's just
In your
you just
experience.
kind of, I mean, I would think the Highlands was the
Hmm.
most incredible place because it's just totally surreal. It's
Wow.
literally like being on Mars.
Yeah.
You're out of this world. You're
You
totally
know,
out
they
of
use that place a lot for movies
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of Star Wars.
because you said it
Um,
looks out of this world.
Game of Thrones was used there also.
Yeah,
Did a
exactly.
lot there. Um, in fact, the story goes up in the Highlands. Neil Armstrong and the Apollo 11 crew actually. Excuse me one second. Um, Neil Armstrong and the Apollo 11 crew actually spent 6 months up there.
Oh, really?
Because it was so remote.
Yeah,
The geology was so volcanic and like the moon that that's where they trained. And they
that's
had a bunch of
fantastic.
geologists with them who they
Yeah.
would go in their suits and they'd be walking around and picking up rocks, and the geologists would like hit their hand and say, "No, we don't want that one. We want this
Yeah,
one."
that's
Um,
cool.
so that's how remote it is. It truly is. You were in the Highlands. You walk out there and you're just like, I'm on the moon or I'm on in space. I'm somewhere crazy."
Wow.
But yeah, that is an amazing place. And I've been privileged to have the ability to do this and to travel.
Yeah.
Um, and we getting back to what we talked about before. I made a decision. I had come to the point in my life when the same age my dad had died, and I realized, whoa,
Yeah.
this is crazy. There's things I wanted to do in my life that I haven't done. So gone pretty crazy over the past couple of years since COVID, going out and doing it. And my practice allows me to do that. The way my practice is set up, I'm on call 24/7. My phone's on, but you can now go all around the world and be in
Hmm.
touch with my patients at all times, which is kind
Yeah,
of cool.
that is.
I was on an ice floe when we were up in Svalbard. Literally, we were on the ice at
Okay. Yeah.
81 degrees north. That's about 500 miles from the North Pole. And my phone went off.
Okay.
I picked it up. It was a patient who needed a
Yeah.
refill or something.
Oh
And
man.
I go, You have no idea where I am, but I'm going to take a picture so you know." And I have no idea how the phone went off there,
Yeah, you
but it
got a
must have
signal.
been, I think, the Wi-Fi connected to the Wi-Fi on the boat,
Yeah.
even though the boat was about 2 miles away. There was nothing else interfering with the signal,
Wow.
and my phone went off. It's
Crazy.
crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy. But it's a
That's
different world now. I can really be anywhere in the world and be in contact
yeah.
with anybody. So yeah, hey,
Technology,
I'm
yeah.
talking to you,
Absolutely.
across the
Absolutely.
world there. So it's just incredible.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's absolutely true. It's made our life way better, technology. So, so I think this was a it was a great conversation. We can end it here. I've
Great.
taken quite a bit of your time. I really appreciate it that you came on and you gave me so much
I
time.
think what you're doing is really cool. I really I applaud you for just getting out there and doing it. And
Thanks.
I saw your video with Rick, and I thought, hey, this guy, really is into it like I'm into it, and
Yeah,
why not
yeah,
give it a shot? So
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's my love and my passion, and
Yeah.
I find that anybody else who has that passion, is worth talking to.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That means a lot. And I'm really happy that you could come on. Um, it was a great convo. Maybe on the future at some time, we'll check up on you again, have
Sure.
another conversation at some point.
Absolutely. Anytime. Yeah. You want to reach out
Yeah.
anytime, make some time and we'll do it. This happened to be a perfect time for me. So we're
Yeah.
good.
I'm glad we did. I'm glad we did. But thanks again, Arthur. And
Thank you.
I'll let you know when this uploads.
All right. Great.
And yeah, all right. So you
Yeah.
can
Yeah. Let me know. And you could use if you want to use any footage on the YouTube or any stuff from my website or anything like that,
I'm
it's
going to.
all yours.
Absolutely. I will. I
All right.
will. All
All
right.
right. All
Talk
right.
to you later then.
Take
Take
care.
care. Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
Okay.